The Lonzo Ball situation has gotten to a point where I don't just feel bad for him anymore, I actually feel terrible for him. In an even more devastating turn of events for NBA fans, somehow, someway, the already catastrophic ZO2 reports have reached a new low, which is the last thing that anybody wanted to hear in this situation. Some things are hard to put into words, especially when they're about a young and talented player that had all of the tools to go out and actually meet some of those lofty expectations that were placed on his shoulder. This Lonzo Ball news is unreal, and we have to talk about it. But first, guys, PrizePicks is the best way to play daily fantasy in states like California, Georgia, Texas, Florida, and more. And they're also a great way to make competitions more fun while putting your knowledge of the game to the test. Today, you guys are in luck, because with this limited time free Jokic square to celebrate the NBA Finals, winning is now easier than ever. To use this square, just download the app and sign up using code COOP so that you could get your initial deposit instantly doubled. As you guys can see, PrizePicks is hooking it up for the finals, so you'll definitely want to make sure that you're not missing out on anything that they have to offer. Time is running out to use that square, so be sure to take advantage of it. Thank you, PrizePicks, for hooking it up and sponsoring today's content. It's hard to believe that Lonzo Ball hasn't played in a game since January 14th, 2022. It's also hard to believe that the Chicago Bulls were the 1 seed at this time, ahead of teams like the red-hot Miami Heat, the super team Brooklyn Nets, and even the Giannis-led Milwaukee Bucks, who would later go on to embarrass them in the first round of the NBA playoffs that year, but for good reason. Despite having a good record during the regular season when healthy, that Bulls team struggled to beat elite teams, and as we all know, it also struggled with injuries. When ZO2 initially sustained this knee injury, it was reported that he had a small meniscus tear, which obviously implied that his injury wasn't the end of the world or his career. A short time after Lonzo's injury, he would go on to have surgery, with the Bulls announcing that he would be back in 6 to 8 weeks, which of course didn't happen because the Bulls went ahead and shut him down later that February. After missing the rest of the season and then still continuing to have pain and discomfort in his knee over the summer, Lonzo would have a second surgery in September, just before the start of the 22-23 season. And yet, things still wouldn't get any better. It would be announced around mid-March of this year that Lonzo Ball would undergo an unfathomable third surgery. Woj would report that this third surgery had the possibility to cost him most, if not all, of the 2023-2024 season. Lonzo discussed his situation before the start of this past season, and his response indicated that he was still a while away from returning to the court. With Zoe needing that third surgery, it was becoming more and more evident that whatever was ailing him was beginning to threaten his long-term NBA career. For crying out loud, this surgery had Lonzo Ball trying to do something that had never been done before, attempting to be the first player in NBA history to return from the very rare cartilage transplant procedure. To quote Lonzo, amid all of this mess, "There was a point where we would warm up and stuff, and I would go through certain days and it would be fine. Then when I got to real basketball activities, I just couldn't do it. We just felt like surgery again would be the best option." Once it was announced that Zoe would undergo a third procedure on his knee, he would also say that "my main focus has been returning to the court and getting to a place where I can rejoin my teammates. This has been a frustrating process, but I'm confident that these next steps are the best path forward. The support of my family, friends, fans, and medical staff throughout my recovery is what keeps me moving forward. I can't wait to get back to doing what I love most, playing basketball." The entire situation going on is hard to digest, not only for Bulls fans, but for everybody. Zoe has experienced setback after setback, gone doctor to doctor, and still has not been able to find the cause of his pain. Mind you, that Lonzo was just 24 years old when he went down with this injury. It's cost him an entire season and a half, and in all likelihood, it's looking like it'll cost much more than that, with members of the Bulls organization privately believing that he won't ever play in the NBA again. For me, this would be very hard news to stomach. It feels like just yesterday, Lonzo Ball was a 19-year-old who entered the NBA with a proverbial target on his back, being the second overall pick in the 2017 NBA draft. I'll never forget Zoe landing in Los Angeles, after playing at UCLA. Everything about him landing in LA felt ideal. For Zoe's second year, the Los Angeles Lakers would have LeBron James, which was sort of the beginning of the end for Lonzo as a Los Angeles Laker. These two would play just 1 year together, with the Lakers now wanting a bona fide star to play with Bron. With the Lakers getting AD and trading Lonzo Ball as part of a colossal package to New Orleans, he would get a no-pressure fresh start. In New Orleans, he and shooting coach Fred Vinson would start laying the foundation for a much-improved jump shot, bolstering his three-point percentage, which would help to take Lonzo's game to an entirely new level. You see, though Zoe wasn't the best player in the world in Los Angeles, he was dynamic and made you wonder what could be if he added a jump shot. In fact, I don't mean to harp on the past, but it's important to realize just how valuable Lonzo has been since arriving in the NBA. Yes, some of the jump shot jokes were funny, but his impact was serious. In his last season in LA, the Lakers would be 6th in the NBA in defensive rating up until about mid-January. Once Zoe went down against the Rockets in mid-January, the Lakers' defense was never the same. The Lakers would go from a 106 defensive rating to 112. They'd also go from the 6th best defense all the way down to the 23rd. Zoe was a great passer, stat sheet stuffer, and versatile guard that had this massive impact on the defensive side of the ball, and yet everybody was just worried about how his jump shot looks, how he shoots from the free throw line, and his three-point percentage, and you know what? Rightfully so. It's true that early in Zoe's NBA career that he wasn't a good shooter, but that's also part of what has made his rise so special. How many unique talents do we see come to the NBA and never develop a jump shot? That could have been Lonzo Ball. If there's something in the NBA that cannot be argued, it's that your shooting percentages rise only after you put in tons and tons of hard work. To me, Zoe's commitment and work ethic cannot be questioned. Before Zoe went down with his injury in 2022, he was top 3 in steals, top 10 in three-pointers made, and the top 2 for blocks among guards, and was shooting an ultra-efficient 42% from the three-point line. It's truly heartbreaking that just as Zoe was starting to ascend, that his career would take a turn for the worse. Unfortunately, injury problems with Lonzo have become all too familiar. With him, it's felt like there's always been something. In fact, Lonzo has been dinged with a total of over 15 different injuries that have caused him to miss at least 3 games so far in his playing career. You see, Lonzo has had an overwhelming number of lower body injuries, which has led to speculation on what the cause of those injuries may have been. In search of an answer, people have started to question his family's own Big Baller brand. As a matter of fact, even the Los Angeles Lakers have had their suspicions about the BBB shoes. If you found a time machine and went back a handful of years, you would find the Los Angeles Lakers flat out asking Lonzo Ball if he feels comfortable wearing the Big Baller brand shoes. To quote Zoe, "They asked me about them and I told them I feel comfortable. If I wasn't comfortable, I wouldn't play in them. If I didn't play in Zoe's, I play in Kobe's, I work out in Bron's, but that's because they're heavier." That doesn't sound too bad, right? Well, Zoe had a completely different take when he was asked about these shoes at a later time. On the Lighthearted podcast with Josh Hart, Zoe said that those ZO2s that I was playing in, they weren't ready. No one knows this, but my business manager Demo had a backpack with like an extra 4 pairs of shoes in there because I would have to switch them every quarter because they would just rip. I am speechless. Zoe, there's no way that you were wearing shoes that would completely give out on you in an NBA game. There are a lot of people who are convinced that these shoes combined with his hard training at such an early age would only make for disaster. And honestly, I don't blame them for believing this. What's mind-boggling is that LaMelo also has had his fair share of injuries early in his career. Against the Pistons back in February, Melo would fracture his ankle, taking him out for the season. Somebody remind me who else had ankle problems? Guys, in the comments below, let me know what you think about everything. Are the Chicago Bulls right? And is Zoe's career really over? At this point, I take him just not experiencing pain anymore. Clicking the video on the screen right now is a great way to support my channel. I'm GetLikeCoop, bringing you guys the scoop until our next upload.